we invited the Cooksons over to dinner this one night, and Roberta made a wonderful meal for them, and I asked Roberta if I could do the dessert, and I thought I'd do some homemade ice cream, and so I did this homemade ice cream with the delicious New Zealand strawberries in it, and also
Pecans?
small pieces of cashew,
Oh,
and that's what we had for dessert, and they really enjoyed the ice cream part of the dinner also, and George kind of took note of that, and when George and YY were completing their home there in Temple View, they had a special occasion over at their house,
the housewarming.
a housewarming, and so Roberta and I went over to that, and I thought, well, if he liked that ice cream so much, maybe I'd make a little homemade ice cream for the open house, because they had all sorts of food coming in, and so I made this same type of ice cream, the strawberry cashew, and I had it in the freezer, and we went over to their house for the homecoming, and George and YY met us at the door, and I said to him, we made some of that homemade ice cream, and here it is. And when George heard that, he said, why don't you give that to me? And he took it back into his house and put it in the freezer, so it stay nice and cold, and that's the last we heard of the ice cream until later in the party, after all the people had gone home, and George signaled to me, and he said, do you mind if we bring out a little of that ice cream now? And so that was a lot of fun to sit down together and finish off the night with a nice dish of that homemade strawberry cashew ice cream. And so that was kind of a funny incident that we had with George and YY.
Do you want to talk about the eel, the moray eel?
Yes. George and YY later, and this was after we had left New Zealand, but they were called to go to the Polynesian Cultural Center and help out in the Maori section, and so we were already living in Hawaii, and I ran into George, and I told him that this one night we were going to go out fishing, and these good Tongan friends had taken us out fishing at night with we had to have a flashlight, and what we did, we melted wax around the opening of the flashlight so water couldn't leak in from that end. And that's how we went fishing at night with the fixed up underwater flashlights. And so this one night George came over. He was going to go with us, and this is right off of where we lived in Hauula, and they had these, at low tide, they had these caves that were back in the
Coral reef.
coral reef there. And I remember this one occasion, I went down and I went in to this coral reef, or this cave, and I didn't stay too long because as soon as I went in, I saw this big moray eel. There, it was probably 6 feet long, and I knew a little bit about moray eels, and so I didn't know I could swim backwards, but I did as quickly as I could, and George was right, and I came out, and George was right there, and I said to him, George, there's a big eel down there, and these Polynesian fishermen, they catch anything and eat anything. It doesn't, anything that moves, whether it's a lobster or whatever. And so I came backing out of that cave real fast and told George what I'd seen back there. And so he says, oh, thank you. And he dove right in and started swimming back into the cave where this big eel was, just as quick as you could. Just like, oh, that's tremendous. That'll be really. And so that was quite an experience. The eel didn't bother him at all. And I can't remember if he speared it or just what. But he went back there looking for it. As you know, he thought that was real good news that I gave him. That was really neat to see that. One of the other things we did together in New Zealand is Mom and I had bought this little English car. I don't remember what they call it. But it was a good little car, and this one time George and I thought we'd take a little trip around New Zealand, and he could go to show me where he was raised, and but we took this wonderful trip around New Zealand for a couple of days, and we had a good time, visited, but he showed me where he had been brought up, but that was another wonderful experience with Brother Cookson, is taking that that ride around New Zealand.
How many hours does that take?
We were probably touring around for maybe, I would say, 6 hours, maybe. We didn't go to every place, but he took me to his home, which was in Tokaria, and showed me where he was raised as a young man. And that was a wonderful experience to ride around with George and listen to his stories. And he was a labor missionary. He had been called from New Zealand to take part in the construction of the school and temple there in New Zealand, and they called them labor missionaries, and they would dedicate their time for a period of time to help in the building of the temple or the school, whatever, or chapels. And that's where he met his wife, YY, and they were both labor missionaries and met each other while they were both working in this capacity, and they got married while they were
While they were on their missions?
Shortly after, or what, I don't know all the rulings there, but that's where he met his wife. She was a labor missionary there, and a great lady.
Dad, I had a quick question. What did you were going to name me something. What was the name? Let's see. Actually, I might pause it just for a sec. You were at one time. You said that you were